All right, it's time to talk NASCAR on Prime Sports Network. And that means Erik Smith from racereviewonline.net is here to, well, what else? Review the race that took
There
place
you go.
on Sunday at Talladega. And Erik, it was, look, there's a lot to digest with the final lap, and we'll go over it. But bottom line is, it was just a typical, really cool, exciting finish at Talladega. We didn't have any late cautions, and that really amped up the pressure and the excitement because you're just waiting for a caution at some point. It just doesn't come, and you're realizing, oh, wait a second, this thing is going to end in the final lap, and it sure did. So it was exciting.
Yeah, you kept waiting for it to happen. Just like, okay, they're going to wreck eventually. They're going to wreck eventually, and then they get to the 3 to go, and then 2 to go, and then they're coming off of 4, and I'm like, are they really going to hit the white flag without wrecking?
Yeah.
Because if they do, then this is it. If they do wreck, and then they did, then it's like, okay, surely they're going to wreck. Surely somebody's going to happen, and it didn't even happen until the tri-oval. And how about Erik Jones leading all the way to the tri-oval? And not only did he not win, he didn't even get a top 5. It just shows you how crazy these endings are. And
We all
then you
had
have Denny
Erik.
Hamlin. Yeah. Then you got Denny Hamlin's tweet yesterday, and which caused a huge stir in the Twitter
What was
world.
that?
And he tweeted, it was Family Guy, the cartoon, and it was an Asian lady driving a car in the show, and she's like, "Oh, I'm about to miss my exit. I get off here. Good luck, everybody." And then she went right to get to the exit and wrecked a bunch of cars. And he timed it when she did that with Kyle Larson going across and wrecking all the cars. And of course, Larson being part Asian, people took huge offense to this.
Oh, yes.
So much so he had to
Okay.
apologize and delete it.
Oh,
But
wait. So now we have to apologize to what? Kyle Larson?
yeah, it's funny.
Mr.
My wife's
Mr.
like, "Well, wait a minute."
Insensitive?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the guy
okay.
that had to take the sensitivity.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah, the whole ruckus having like, oh, I saw that. I'm like, that's going to get deleted soon. I guarantee it. And sure enough, it did. But yeah, because Larson came up and I get where Hamlin was mad because it took out 2 of his cars, Bubba and Kurt. But he's like he said, me and Larson are friends. This was just all in fun, but people got mad at it. They had to delete it, and but that opened the pathway, the instant non-track incident, not Denny's Twitter, to Ross Chastain winning.
Well, let's take a look here at the way it all ended. So, all right. So
So if you go back a little bit, like actually, I told you wrong at the start. So right here, as weird as this sounds, as the leader, you're almost hitting the brakes. You're not like as Jones is trying. He's not trying to get too far ahead. Larson's trying to back up to Chastain, as you see here, and I thought he pulled it almost too far. He's trying to lag back. You got guys making runs behind. Jones just thought, I'm going to stay low. And here's Chastain pushing Larson. So Jones is literally probably half throttle right here. He doesn't want to get too far ahead. But when Kurt went high there, I thought this was over. And then here he is, Paul's right there. You see how far of a lead he's got.
yes.
So at this point, I thought he was a sitting duck. And that's part of the super speedway game today is, as weird as this sounds, the guy leading does not want to be full throttle, because if he pulls out there, the guys behind are lagging back. This is right here is what Kyle Larson, I thought, might have won Kyle Larson the race or was going to get him wadded up, because at this point he's so far ahead. Once he gets the drafting help, as you see Chastain coming, it's going to push him faster than Jones, and there's nothing Jones can do. Right now, Jones is a sitting duck. There's nothing he can do about it. He's got to hope they wreck behind before they get to him, which obviously, as you move forward, it's not going to happen. But Chastain right here on the bottom line is pushing Larson. Larson thinks Busch is coming right there. As you see, he's starting to move up. He's thinking he's going to block Busch's run because Busch has drafting help, I believe, Austin Dillon right there, or Truex. It's one of the Bass Pro Shops cars. They're coming strong. So Larson overthought it. He's thinking, oh, if I don't move up the block, these guys are going to pass us both. But he was too late. As you see right here, Kurt's already to his right rear.
Yeah, you see, and this is the problem too. All right, because this is one of the things we have to talk about. When we previewed this race last week, we were laughing about how CJ put some money on Kyle Larson because Kyle, but we were like, oh, Carlos probably going to win now. because Kyle Larson has no right. He doesn't do anything out of these racetracks. Nothing. Daytona,
Never.
he didn't do anything in Atlanta this year. Talladega, nothing. So what we had here in my mind with Erik Jones and Chastain and Truex and Larson, we had a lot of inexperienced drafters that didn't know when to make the move because they weren't experienced at doing it. And first we see Kyle Larson screwing up here, but I also will say I think Erik Jones waited. I think if he did not make a quick enough decision. He basically was like, well, do I go at Larson or don't I? I will, and it was too late. Because I think if Jones goes out with Larson immediately, I think there's a shot that so here let's watch this. See right here, he completely now look. Let's just say that Kurt Busch. Let's just say they don't wreck. Mm-hmm. All right, I still think that there's no way Erik Jones is gonna be able to hook up with Larson in that moment.
No, he waited.
He waited too long.
He overthought it. Yep, I think Larson and him both, if they would have just tandem together, like you're saying, they would have ensured a 1-2. Because what happened, if you go back to the moment that you paused it, right there, pause it right there. So if they together, and this is where your spotters usually, and you're in that moment, will stand next to each other. Because let's be honest, Ty Dillon's not up there, and it looks like the next closest Hendrick guy is probably Chase Elliott back there in the middle. Those spotters should have been next to each other, like, hey, let's team up together and ensure one of us wins. At this point, and really if you go back to probably turns 3 and 4, they should have seen this lane come in. So right here, you see Kurt's on the bottom. So it's got to be Truex then help it. The minute they go up top here, those two should have went up to block that run. Right now, they should be running that middle lane. Because if you see
Jones and Larson
should be up ahead of Busch and Truex at this point because it's not formed on the bottom. You look at Chastain, there's a gap there with Austin Dillon. They're not formed. But Larson's lagging back, as you see here. He's trying to lag back to pick up the run when he should have been pushing Jones at this point. Because as you see, now that they separated, he's trying to hope he's going to pick up Busch, but he waited too long, which is to your point. He's never been in this. He's got 0 top 5 finishes until this point on a super speedway. By him lagging back, it ensured he wasn't going to win. Now, Jones should have just stayed low right here. He should have known that he's going to try to move up because if Jones stayed low right here, he was going to win this race. Because of what Chastain said, the seas parted. As you see right here, look, Jones is already pointed towards the outside wall. He's coming to block. Chastain had all the momentum, and that's why he won right there. They overthought it. Yes. I would say this is one that you hear that you see stick and ball sports. Well, so-and-so didn't necessarily win the game. The other team lost the game.
Yes, that's it.
Larson and Jones lost the race, and Chastain just happened to be there to win it. But there is no reason. If Larson works with Jones, one of those two wins this race.
And again, if Larson moves out, even at this point, if Larson would have just moved out sooner.
Yep, he's too late.
Yeah, if he just would have moved out, then obviously Jones could at that point, more than likely, he would have. But again, that's the problem is that you could just see it right here. All right, well, you could tell Larson's starting to move out.
Too late already.
So why isn't Jones moving out with him right there? He waited too long.
He laid it, and that's where I go back to turn 3 and 4 is where this was lost. Larson trying to lay off Jones's bumper because that's what happens when you lay off. It creates a parachute. You don't have the drafting help. Your car stalls out. By Larson in 3 and 4 not working, if those two would have just tandem, we know that you can't tandem forever, but you can tandem for at least a half a lap. If those two hooked up in 3 and 4 and really pushed it would have been a race between those two. Kurt and Truex never would have caught them because they were essentially doing what the two cars in front of them already were doing. They would have been out, and then Larson makes his move. But by doing what he did, he cost both of them a win, is what I feel. And I get Larson. Hey, why would I want to tandem with him? If I lay off at him, he's now got the parachute. I can pick up a block. Yeah. But I look at his spotters should have been telling him Kurt and Truex are forming at the top. You also have created a parachute for yourself by now because you didn't have Ross Chastain drafting with him. He was lagging back. So it created basically 2 parachutes up front, and that's where you got the wreck. So I look at that really started in turn 3 and 4 was their demise.
And Chastain even said it. He said, I didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
And I won this race.
I just happened. Yep. It worked out for him for the better.
Yeah.
And now you go into the Dover, and who would have thought at the beginning of the year, if somebody would have said after, 10 races now, 10, 11, 10, I think, that we only have 2 drivers that have won multiple times, and they're William Byron and Ross Chastain. Yeah. What if somebody would have, you're way out of it. But and then you get Chase Elliott without another top 5. He gets a top 10, and he's still the points leader going to Dover.
That's right. So look, again, it was really fun. It was great the way that there were no cautions late and all that kind of stuff. So that was cool. But this is what happens when you have inexperienced drafters trying to make decisions, quick decisions that they're not used to making. It can get ugly, and that's why we had an ugly finish. It was exciting, but it was ugly. So
it was. I was glad to see the whole final stage green to checkered. That made it. Cause let's be honest, when those cars are racing like that and they're not wrecking, it's exciting racing. But when they're wrecking, and that's the only part I hate at the end of some of these races, when you can't even run a lap and they're all just it's like we can't even get them back around. They keep wrecking.
Yeah.
But this, it was a good ending, and hey, by them doing what they did and not working together, set up a good finish for us.
By the way, when Blaney was leading, did he lose? Because I switched for a minute the channel. Did he lose the lead when he pit?
I believe so.
Because he was leading for 20 laps or so. Yep. And then I turned it back on 5 minutes later. I was switching over and I switched it right back. And I figured I was going to get it before they pit. And I was like, wait, how did Blaney get to 13th? And then after about 5 or 6 laps, I realized, they pit already? So
yeah, the manufacturer, I think they just messed up.
Again, Ryan Blaney leading the race, and he comes into the pits.
Pit stops. Yep. He's at the point I don't want to pit.
I know.
Just leave me out there.
Because with this group, if he's just leading the race late, he's going to win.
Exactly. If he could just
him and Bubba, if it's him and Bubba out there, coming out first and second, it's one of those two.
Those two are going to work together.
Yeah.
Yep. Those two will work together, and but no, Yep, he just definitely needs to get to a point to where he can exit pit lane for the final pit stop
with the lead.
And nothing's going to happen from there. He'll win the race. But and now we're coming to a stretch, which we'll get to the next show. Is I don't feel good about Team Penske's chances of winning between now and the whole month of May. I feel like that window is going to close just because of the track's coming up for him. Granted, the next gen could change things, but
then again, winning is not really. Look, they haven't won yet, and it's working out.
3 of the top 6. Yeah, they've got 2 of the top 6 in points, and they're not even won a race yet.
But we will talk about this on the next show. It's going to be interesting because again, it's a new car. Will that change everything? So we don't know.
Change
could.
Yep.
So
it could. The option is there. Yep.
Because actually. Blaney had a pretty decent run at Richmond. Which is not a good track for him.
Nope, that's not a good one for him either. So the door is open. Can they turn it around? The only problem is I don't see anything out of them right now that leads me to believe. It'd be one thing if they were out there winning a bunch of races right now. But the way they're running, it's just a weird season. The fact that you look at the point, it's like we're not even talking points, and it's hard to talk points. But it's this year even more when you look at the top of the points, and it's like these guys aren't even really getting top 5s. It's just really weird. It's an odd season, which makes me
Denny Hamlin's 24th.
He's got 1 top 10 all year.
24th.
That's where I again, we'll get into the next show where I struggled. This should be a racetrack coming up that you'd want to take them, but it's like how many times do you keep taking these guys and you don't see anything out of them? And it's.
Well, we didn't take him last week in a track we normally would have taken Denny Hamlin like a lock, and we were right not to take him.
Yep, it's proven there's definitely a problem with the Gibbs camp right now. The Toyota and the speed. And then when Kyle Busch is saying his future is dependent on a sponsor, again, it's like, well, you're not going to let that guy walk, are you? Like you said last weekend, and it just feels like something's still off there. And well, yes, they've now won 2 of the last 4 races, but again, you look at how these races ended these last 2 weeks. Kyle Busch led the front stretch, and then Ross Chastain led just through the tri-oval. I mean, the guys winning, there's just no rhyme or reason either for how they're winning and why they're winning.
And keep in mind, Chastain has 2 wins, but it's on a road course and Talladega.
And Super Speedway. Yeah.
So it's a little bit, it's still excellent. It's good. But when are we going to, when do we get to the point, and maybe it's this month, because like you said, history should tell us that this month, especially next week, and look, Hendrick is probably going to dominate because they've been dominating all year and they should dominate Dover. Yep. I don't think this, but how will just the rest of the whole season, all the drivers and everything, because we're getting to the point in the next few weeks where we have to be saying to ourselves, this is going to be the way it's going to be all season.
It is. And this is what I talked about, I think, from the jump, from right at the beginning of the show, when you asked how long into the season till you start seeing this is what it's going to be. And I mentioned Memorial Day weekend. I kept saying probably by the 6th, give these guys time to get races in, get back east, tinker with the cars, and then you'll start seeing the big teams take off. I feel like this month, at some point, we've had short tracks, we've had super speedways, we've had mile and a halves, we've had road, we had dirt. We've now had enough data to like, okay, let's now readjust. Now we see where we can adjust here. You're getting used to the car. And now out of this stretch, we have Dover, Darlington, Kansas, Charlotte. We've got another stretch here to where I feel like, okay, some guys are really going to start picking up. And I have that in my burning questions coming out on Friday is I feel like Dover is going to start a stretch. Byron, Bowman, Larson, and Truex are the 4 that have passed, come to fruition. These are the 4 that's going to start kicking in. These are the 4. These are really good tracks for them. Byron and Bowman have been improved this year. Larson's starting to heat back up again. 3 top 5s his last 4 weeks. It's like, okay, Dover, Hendrick went 1, 2, 3, 4 last year. So I feel like
1, 2, 3, 4 on Sunday.
It's basically Hendrick's race to lose this coming in this weekend. So we'll see. It's now like, let's see if things start happening.
Yeah, let's see if Larson starts winning 2 races in a row and that kind of stuff. Where it's like, okay.
Well, yeah, you get Truex for an example. He's got 2 top 5s all season. But then you go to Darlington, him and Larson were 1-2 last year. Then you go to Kansas. Truex has 9 top 10s his last 10, 7 in the top 6. Then you go to Charlotte. Truex has 8 top 6s in his last 11, including 3 wins and a runner-up on the oval. So if he doesn't heat up in this little stretch, then is he this year?
No.
If you don't do it in this stretch, I feel like it's never going to happen.
And again, though, it's early, so we'll see whether or not the trend of it's a long season and you've got still a good couple of months before you can start getting hot. And then once you get hot, then we'll see.
You've got it. Yeah, but see, this is where I feel like, too, the playoff points it's also even right now, are there to be had. Somebody can get hot and win some races here. Logic states we're probably not going to get 16 different winners. Somebody's going to start winning. Somebody's going to start picking it up. And
you would think so.
It feels like, I do feel like, I mean, Kyle's already won, so Hamlin's already won. Does Truex finally get his winners? If it doesn't happen in this stretch, you just have to wonder, is it going to happen?
No.
Yep. So
we're going to get those road courses are going to come into play.
Yeah, but then this happens to Chase Elliott. I mean, June is going to be a little interesting with. You've got Road America coming on. You got an inaugural race at Gateway. You've got Sonoma. You've got Nashville for the 2nd year. So June's going to be another, hey, we're adjusting, could open the door back up. But this month right here is one that I think is going to shape the rest of the season because there's some good tracks for some good guys that have been solid this year. But on the flip side, Penske guys aren't typically solid at these tracks coming up. So they could slide back a little bit. So that's why I feel like the door is wide open right now for these guys that have been good to just capitalize.
All right. So we will be back next week to recap the Dover race, the Monster Mile, and all that other stuff. So that's next week. And in the meanwhile, when's the next time you're going to be at a track on location? I know you
Next, IndyCar
Indy cars
stuff here at Indy. Yep.
So that starts what, next week or 2 weeks?
2 weeks, here at it. Well, yeah, if they have anything next week, I'll be there. But yeah, we got the road course and then qualifying, and then I was actually at the track last week, but so many rain delays, I just couldn't get a time for us to do a show because it's like, when are we actually going to do something out here? And then like, oh, now we're going to go now, and so
that's a bummer.
Yeah, it was. So, but hopefully, with a whole month, we'll have multiple show opportunities out there.
Going to be fun.
So,
yep.
This will be the one of the last weekends I'm not at the track for a while.
All right. I'm sure your wife appreciates that. So
yeah, exactly.
All right. Sounds good. We'll talk to you next when we preview Dover, and then we'll be back next week on this show to recap it. So, Erik, appreciate it. We'll talk to you in a few seconds.
Thank you. Sounds good.